Well, thank you. What a nice welcome. Hello. Perhaps you have a favorite philosopher, a sophisticated one like Aristotle or Socrates, maybe Taylor Swift. Well, my favorite philosopher was my dad. He was my guy. And he had these things that I like to call dadisms, not to be confused with a dad joke. Because while they're both poorly timed and well-intended, dadisms were not designed to be funny at all. No, there were these little life lessons. And he had two that I want to talk to you about today that were two of his most famous. One of them actually helped me begin to recognize the baboons in my life. And you might be wondering, why is she talking about baboons? We'll get to that in a little bit. But unfortunately, sometimes it takes these big events to happen in our lives to begin to comprehend and then actually apply these life lessons. My big event was a little bit of a love story that ended in a self-love story. So let me take you back to the beginning. Here I was, single, career-focused, traveling all the time, sometimes for work and sometimes for fun. In my free time, I got to spend time with my friends. Well, mostly my dogs, but also my friends. And I was happy. Life was good. And then one day, I was introduced to Chad. Now, as I'm telling you about my story, you might be thinking about your own big life event that happened. Now, I was resistant to dating Chad for two reasons. One, because I just told you how good my life was. Why mess with a good thing? And also, he had two kids. But over some cocktails, I became open to the idea. And I started things slow, but I'd crack the door open a little bit and he'd step in. I'd even get that feeling in my stomach, you know, the one like butterflies, which would allow me to open the door a little bit more and he'd slide in further. And eventually I fell in love. And then I met those two kids, and I fell in love two more times. I found myself in places I never imagined. School pickup lines and drop-off lines, packing lunches in the morning. And then instead of eating lobster on the beach in Greece, I was having popcorn on the couch watching movies on Friday night. Instead of stepping into my stilettos, I was stepping on Legos. We all know that feeling, right? But I had this instant family, and while it was never part of my life goals or part of my plan, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Life was good. Until one day, a friend wanted to meet urgently for cocktails at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Now look, I enjoy a good beverage, but not in the middle of the night on a Tuesday. And this was not a 10 p.m. Tuesday night kind of friend. So all day, I am thinking, what is going on with her in her life that is so big that she needs to share? And how do I show up and be a good, supportive friend? Well, to my surprise, when I show up, she displays an arrangement of evidence about the man that was living in my house, Chad. It was like I walked in the restaurant with one life and was turning around leaving with another. And I didn't even know what that looked like. So immediately, this detective wall forms in my mind, and I began cross-referencing and mapping out the dates, the names, and the locations. And there was just too much evidence. The relationship ended that weekend. This guy was not who I thought he was at all. I had been deceived, betrayed, and completely bamboozled. And it was on that day, almost 6 years ago, that I really began to understand the meaning of these two dadisms. Now, maybe this exact thing hasn't happened to you. I sure hope not. But you know this type of event that I'm talking about. We've all faced them. Maybe you remember where you were, who you were with, maybe even what you were wearing. But these big events they happen to all of us. And maybe yours was like mine, heartbreak, or grieving the death of a loved one, financial strain, or a health scare or diagnosis, or something completely different. But you know what I'm talking about because it consumed your entire world and every thought. And according to Cleveland Clinic, your brain processes around 70,000 thoughts per day. While there's no real solid statistics on what percentage of those thoughts are negative, there's some evidence that it can be quite high. And these thoughts play a big role in how we recover and feel about these events that happen in our lives. And your voice is the loudest and most frequent one that you'll hear. Your thoughts create your feelings shape your mood, and your mood becomes your reality. And these big events are bound to change us. But I love that this says change is inevitable, but transformation is a conscious choice. And sometimes when we're going through things like this, we have this tendency to beat ourselves up, or maybe even be downright mean to ourselves. Do you have a negative self-talk thing that you kind of have on repeat that you tell yourself? I want to invite you to a new experience. We're not going to do the hokey pokey or anything, don't worry. But if you just want to kind of create a safe space for yourself and gaze down or close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, and just like the snap of a finger, the blink of an eye, say that negative self-talk thing to yourself. And pay attention to how that makes you feel. And then when you're done, you can open your eyes or gaze up. There's always this huge downshift in the energy in the room when we do that. All right, so now let's do the next thing. Just turn to the person next to you. Turn to the person next to you. Not very obedient. And now say that thing to them. I'm just kidding, we're not going to do that. Some people actually said, no, I'm not going to do that. And that is the point and the problem with negative self-talk. If you wouldn't say that thing to the person sitting next to you or to my gorgeous dog Francine, which you better not, then why do you say it to yourself? So let's fix this. Let's flip that script. And again, make yourself comfortable, either gaze down or close your eyes. And this time I want you to say the opposite thing to yourself 3 times, maybe with a smile on your face. And if the opposite thing feels like a stretch, try something 50% kind or 20%, 10%. And then when you're done, you can open your eyes or gaze up. Do you feel that difference? Some of you are actually smiling now. This is the beginning of unlocking your secret power, which is the kind key. Now, in learning from my big event, this brings us back to one of the first dadisms, but also a study that was conducted in Kenya. Remember I mentioned those baboons. So researchers observed a troop of baboons in Kenya. Within that troop, there was 3 subgroups. There was a group of males that were aggressive, domineering, abusive, and toxic. There was another group of males that were more friendly and amiable, and then a group of females that were loving and nurturing and kind. Well, that first group, the abusive, toxic males, they went out scavenging for food, and they came across some meat, and they selfishly devoured it. Turns out that meat was tainted, and unfortunately, they all died. So that might leave you to wonder, well, what happens to the rest of the community? Do the other males take on those abusive, toxic behaviors? No, on the contrary. What they observed was that by removing the toxic, abusive behaviors, a community of empathy, connection, and strength emerged. Which reminds me of the first of the 2 dadisms. You're only as good as the company you keep. And as a teenager, of course, I was like, no, Dad, I'm my own person. It doesn't matter who I hang around. But now I'm very intentional about the company that I keep. And speaking of the company that you keep, grab your pen and paper, maybe your phone, and jot down the 5 most important people in your life. Or even just think about, who are the 5 most important people in your life? And I want to ask you, where are you on that list? Were you even a consideration for yourself? So often, we don't even make the top 5, 10, 15, or 20 priorities in our own lives, and we just learned that sometimes we're not even that kind to ourselves. So let me wrap up with my dad's most famous dadism. You are the architect of your own destiny. And as a kid, I was like, what does that even mean? But now I've come to understand it as, we can't always control what happens, but we can control how we respond. And there is a difference between a reaction and a response. So I want to bring you back to that Lego. So let's say you started out the day, and just bear with me. Picture yourself going through your day like this. You step on the Lego, and your initial reaction might be, ow, because it doesn't feel very good to step on that Lego. But how are you going to respond? Are you going to get mad and then go yell at your kid for stepping on the Lego? And now you're running late for work. And now, as you're on your way to work, it feels like you're hitting every single red light on the way, which is making you later. And then you spill your coffee on yourself, and then your coat pocket gets stuck on the door handle. And now you're in a bad mood and your whole day's ruined. Your coat pocket never seems to get stuck on the door handle when you're in a good mood, does it? All because you stepped on a Lego. Could you feel your blood pressure rising and like your heart rate increasing just thinking about going through your day like that? Let's fix it. I want to go through a round and introduce you to box breathing. And maybe you already are familiar with it, but deep breathing exercises are so beneficial. So box breathing I like because it's simple. It's 4 steps, 4 seconds each. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So let's do a round together. So I'll guide you. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. You feel that calm? Box breathing has been scientifically proven to reduce your blood pressure, to decrease cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and increase your focus. So you can do this anytime, anywhere, and nobody has to know. You can do it at work. You can do it in traffic. You can do it when you step on that Lego. And we've all faced these big events in our lives, big events, small events. And we have so much more control over how we respond than we give ourselves credit for. And it begins with our thoughts and unlocking that kind key. Because like the quote said, change is inevitable, but transformation is a conscious choice. And I actually am not talking about resilience here because resilience is bouncing back. I encourage people to break beyond resilience and catapult yourself into a new and different place. And make sure that you are not bringing those baboons along with you because we're hard enough on ourselves the way that it is. And if you don't want to take it from me, take it from her. Until recently, she was the oldest living woman at 117 years old, and she shared that her secrets to longevity included lots of positivity and staying away from toxic people. So maybe that's just the evidence that you need to realize that you are the architect of your own destiny. Thank you.